Howdy everybody, Steve here, KM9G X6200. Is it still Linux? Can we still hack into it? Did they upgrade the hardware at all? Let's go take a look at the console and see, well, oh, did I just give it away? And see what we can find out. All right, before we get into the console, I want to show you the system that we're working with here. We have a Raspberry Pi. This is a Model 4. It doesn't matter, it just needs to have a serial port and the ability to do a terminal. This is the power cord, so that is it. An SD card, because I forgot to put it away before I set up the camera. That is the X6100. You will notice there is nothing plugged into it. The X6100 was just getting very jealous that it wasn't the star of any videos. And then right above that is the X6200, and you can see the USB cable plugged into the side. That is the cable that is plugged into the Raspberry Pi, so no trickery at all. We have a power cable over here and nothing plugged into the antenna port. So I still like this screen a lot better than that screen, but I liked that screen when it first came out, and maybe I'm just, you know, new shiny. Ooh! Okay, we are logged into the Raspberry Pi 4 here on the screen, and I wanted to show you the commands that I did to set up connecting in. You can also SSH into this. We'll do that a little bit later in the video. I just wanted to show you some extra cool stuff here while we're doing this. So the first thing that we need to do is set up the serial port so that we can actually connect to it. And this is through the USB cable that I showed you before. So it is the lower of the two. In Linux, they show up as ACM 0 or ACM 1. You want to use ACM 0 because 0 is less than 1. CS8 is your stop bits, data bits, etc., and paren B is some other crazy command line thing that I figured out a long time ago and can't be bothered to look up because it's not terribly important. So press that into existence, and then you want to do a screen command, and it is dev tty ACM 0, the serial port that we just set up, and a speed of 115/200. And that is going to instantly connect us to the radio. There is nothing currently showing on the screen because whatever was on the serial port output before I connected is still sitting there as far as the radio is concerned, as far as the computer is concerned. And so if I type anything at all, I need to know what it was saying, or I need to just press enter. And pressing enter, in this case, now it's asking me for a password. So I know before that it was asking me for a username. I didn't type in a username. If I type in anything at all right now, it's not going to matter because it doesn't have a proper username and it can't look it up anyhow. Now that I've gotten past that, it's asking me for a login. So I'm going to log in as root. Never log in as root, right? And the password, it's the exact same password it was on all of the previous firmware updates on the X6100. It is 123. Super secret high security password. This is also the password that is available over SSH. So that is a security risk if you are out in a public location on public Wi-Fi. So never connect this thing to the internet directly, and never have anything connected to the internet while this thing is connected to the internet directly if you ignored rule number 1. You've been warned. All right, we are in. So what can we do now that we're in? We can do all kinds of the usual Linux stuff. So I want to do cat/proc/CPU info, and it's going to tell me that there are 4 cores in an ARM v7 processor. This is the exact same information that we got over the X6100. It would not surprise me if they're using the exact same development board inside of this radio as they did inside of that radio. But regardless, it's an ARM v7, and that means we can do a lot of cool things. Let's check out how much RAM it has. And if we scroll up, it has 1 gig of RAM. So now we need to check out, I don't know, disk space? Hey, it's got disk space. This looks a lot like the exact same size of the root partition from the last radio. 7 gigs in size. It's a bigger MMC card inside of the unit, but they only have a 7 gig partition on it. 409 megabytes used. Okay, so there's plenty of room to do extra stuff if you wanted to just do it on the SD card inside. So let's check out what ports are open. All right, we have port 21 for FTP and port 22 for SSH. So those are your 2 ports that are open. Let's see this thing do its magic reboot. Since it's a serial console, I will be able to actually watch all of the reboot commands. And since I'm already logged in as root, I don't need to do sudo reboot or anything. I just type in reboot. And there it goes. Reading logo.bmp, so if we replace the logo.bmp with a similarly encoded logo.bmp file, then we'll be able to have our own custom image baked in when the machine boots up. I see Awesome Mixer started. I see Monet started. Monet is a daemon that runs and checks to make sure that another process is running. So they still have the same crashium. They still have the same software made of 100% pure crashium as they did before, and they're expecting it to crash and restart. And the radio is now up and running if I take a look over there, and this is just whatever was left out on the screen. So if it's asking me for a login, you can see it here. So I know that it's asking me for a login, so I just type in root, and I type in 123 as the password, and now we have logged in. Let's look back and see if there's anything interesting in here. I see Bluetooth, I see USB devices, the 802.11n Wi-Fi adapter is made by Realtek, and it is connected over USB 3. Not that you really need a whole lot of speed on a radio for Wi-Fi purposes, because we just got our speed limits increased from the FCC, and nobody's taken advantage of it yet. But why not make it, as best as it can be? So it's a Sun Xi processor, system on a chip, SoC, TTY S2 at MMIO is a U6-16550. So that is a serial controller, but TTY S2 isn't exposed to me, so that's got to be something working internally with the other dev boards that are inside of the machine. 800 by 480 panel, and booting Linux on physical CPU. And it's old Jet at Ubuntu again, who's doing the kernel compiling, and it is the 5.89 kernel. So it is still fairly far behind. And there is your boot script. Drawing the logo. And there is our RAM count, 1024 megabytes is 1 gigabyte, and we're at the top. So there is the uname-a, and we'll do cat/etsy/star release star, and there is your Linux version. All right, and for grins, and there you go, you can connect to the radio over SSH with username of root and password of 123. I see an operator user, so they're getting closer to not having a root user. It is completely hackable, just like the old X6100 is, which is why I fell in love with the X6100 when it first came out. It is not the world's best radio. I have said that many times. However, it is a fun radio because of the hacking you can do. In the X6100 days, we have loaded Armbian on the machine. We have had a full Linux desktop environment that ran WSJTX from on the radio and did radio things. All you need to do is bring radio, mouse, keyboard, battery, antenna, and you are doing FT8 in the field without a computer. A couple of people have made all kinds of software. One of them is R1CBU. He made a custom firmware that does all the things and all the magic. And then there is another one that did Whisper. Right inside of the existing radio, just load a couple of commands onto it and get your Whisper on. And it's a portable computer, so it can do anything. Think along the lines of a low power Raspberry Pi type computer, low speed, low memory, etc. Raspberry Pi type computer, and you'll be right along where this will work in your world. Now, if only this thing had GPIO pins and we could put like an MMDVM hat on it or something. The radio has plastic side cases on it, so Wi-Fi and Bluetooth do work better than they did in the X6100 because they're not inside of a great big metal cage. So we're continuing along in the X6200 saga. What can this radio do for you? Why do you want it? Why don't you want it? These are all great questions. This is a prototype radio, so I can't show you too many things, but some of the things I have been able to show you are over here in this video. Take a look over there. I'll be waiting for you. Thanks for being awesome.